We'll settle on a poll question. We'll get to phone calls coming up, 877-3DP Show. Chris Webber a little bit later on in the program. Tom Pelissero, NFL Network insider, will stop by, recapping what happened at the owners' meetings. Before we get to Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk, I mentioned that this might be my favorite Jim Irsay moment, the Colts owner who passed away yesterday in Los Angeles at the age of 65. And it took place a couple of years ago, I believe 2022. And Jim Irsay said that he believes there's merit to remove Daniel Snyder as the owner of the Commanders. They were at their NFL Fall League meetings in New York. And he said, hopefully you could get 24 out of 32 owners who would agree with him. And Irsay's comments came less than a week after ESPN.com published an article that detailed Daniel Snyder's alleged efforts to influence other owners and the league office to allow him to keep the team. Snyder told people close to him that he had negative information on fellow NFL owners, league executives, and the commissioner. Irsay told reporters he couldn't care less. He believed that Daniel Snyder needed to be out of the NFL. We make way for Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk Live co-host. You can see it Monday through Friday prior to this show on Peacock, and the author of Father of Mine, Son of Mine, available in e-book form on Amazon for 99 cents. Mike, your thoughts on Jim Irsay?
He was one of a kind, Dan, and Chris and I were trying to find any other owner over the years that was as overwhelmingly authentic in all ways. He said what he believed. He did so many good things without seeking any type of publicity. Tony Dungy told us a great story earlier today about how when Tony was the coach in his first year in 2002, his dad would come to the home games. And Jim said, well, just have him fly on the plane to the road game. So in 2003, every road game, Tony's with his dad, and his dad passed after that season. Just a little gesture like that, just caring about other people. And he was gregarious. He was different. He was himself. He helped address the stigma as it relates to mental health. He was very adamant about that. I just think that he was one of a kind. He cared about his team. He cared about his players. You never hear any Colts players complain about the way they were treated by Jim Irsay. So the league is lesser for him. And I'm glad you read that quote. He was the only one who was willing to break ranks and say what needed to be said. And what he said in October of 2022 needed to be said. And I think it contributed to the groundswell to make change. So Commanders fans should be feeling very, very grateful. And they should have a special place in their own hearts for Jim Irsay, because without that, I don't know what happens. Maybe it would have happened anyway. But you have to respect that he was willing to step aside from the club and say what needed to be said.
Seemed to be a groundswell late yesterday that you had Jason Kelce, former Eagles center, and he goes to the owners' meetings, and he is a lobbyist, basically, trying to get the Tush push to stay in the NFL. I don't know what kind of impact he had, but it felt like he did have an impact here, Mike, because I think the NFL was doing their damnedest to get rid of this play.
And I don't think they're going to stop, Dan. 22-10, the final vote. That means they only need to get two teams to change their position between now and next March if they try it again. And it's clear that the league is the one that was behind this. We reported yesterday that they basically encouraged the Packers to be the ones to make the proposal. They have their own system for proposing rule changes. It's very odd to me, and they did it with two different proposals this year. The tush-push ban and the playoff seeding that was submitted by the Lions. Rod Wood, the president of the team, said, they came to us and said, hey, how would you like to partner on this? Well, it sure didn't seem like a partnership. It seemed like it was the Lions. So It's just a strange way of doing business. And the bottom line, I think the commissioner wants both of those things, and he's close. Two teams need to have their arm twisted sufficiently to go from the yes to the no as it relates to the tush push. So I don't think this is over. And it's unfortunate because, look, they created the atmosphere where this play was allowed to emerge by changing the rules against pushing the runner in 2006 and allowing it. And you can make whatever case you want to make, but I think at the end of the day, it just comes off as we don't like the fact that the Eagles have cracked the code and no one else can crack it, so we're going to get rid of it. And it makes it hard, I think, to sell to the average person because it just feels like kind of a petty and small attack on what the Eagles have perfected.
If this is Tampa Bay, do we care about this? It's the Eagles, and they're winning a Super Bowl. And I just wonder, is it the play or is it the team with the play?
I think that it's a confluence of events that have led to where we now are. It's the combination of the play is very effective. The Eagles are highly successful. Dan, I believe the catalyst for this, and there's evidence to back it up. Mike Pereira, the Fox Rules analyst, formerly the VP of officiating, he said in the days after the NFC Championship that ugly exchange we saw with the Commanders jumping offside repeatedly to the point where the referee, Sean Hockley, had to warn the Commanders, if you do it again, we're going to award a touchdown to the Eagles, something that's never been done in the history of the league. A touchdown awarded for what they call a palpably unfair act. I think someone saw that, possibly the guy whose signature is on every football, and said, we got to get rid of this thing. We can't have this. And it's a bunch of different things that came together. And the problem is they should have nipped this in the bud when it first started. They should have realized, no, we never meant by changing the rule to allow pushing the run that you're going to build it into your playbook and you're going to weaponize it. And you're going to create this play that doesn't look like a football play. But they waited too long, and now it looks like an attack on the Eagles. And when they try to give justifications, it's almost Keystone Cops. Well, it's a safety risk. Okay, show us the data. Well, we don't have any data. Well, it could be a safety risk. Well, what does that mean? Well, it doesn't look like a football play, and they're moving the goalposts around literally on this thing, and it's a bad look. It's a very bad look for the league, and I think that every team out there, they have two challenges now. One, come up with a way to do it. Two, come up with a way to stop it.
When we were in Green Bay for the draft, and I pressed Matt LaFleur, I said, did the league, instruct you? And he said, well, we were nudged.
Yeah.
We were nudged. They needed to have a team. So, hey, we want you to be the sacrificial lamb. Put your name to it, just like the Lions with the playoff seeding. So, yeah, I mean, Coach told us that the league nudged them in so many words.
Yeah, and it's odd. And why would you pick the Packers as the team to do it? They lost to the Eagles twice last year. It reeks of sour grapes if they do it. Pick a team from the AFC. The Bills would have been the perfect team to get behind this, literally, because they do it too, and they do it well. Now, the original proposal didn't affect the way the Bills do it because they always do a delayed push. The first proposal targeted immediate push, and that would have opened Pandora's box of inconsistency and cries of rigging. Can you imagine, Dan, if the Eagles had scored a touchdown at the goal line in a playoff game and a flag comes out because someone in black and white stripes thought it was immediate and maybe it wasn't? They already have enough fans saying the fix is in. That would have been a nightmare. So they backed up and they said, well, let's just come up with a general ban. But at the end of the day, there's still 2/3 of the league that wants to get rid of it. It's only because the league requires a 75% supermajority to change the rules that it stayed. There is something to be said for the fact that 22 teams want to get rid of it. And I think that that's going to embolden the commissioner to work the back channels, make a deal, maybe make a little bit of a threat. We've seen retribution in the past for teams that oppose things the commissioner wanted. And I know that, oh, you're not supposed to say those things, but it's true. It's true. We've seen it. I know teams believe they've been targeted for unfavorable scheduling or multiple short week games because they were against flexing of Thursday night football. That happened a couple of years ago. So I don't think this is over. And by next year, Dan, don't be surprised if there's safety data to support the position.
Talking to Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk Live co-host, also contributor to NBC Football Night in America. The Olympic Flag Football Initiative is going strong thanks to the NFL. Help me understand how many NFL players will actually be on the U.S. Olympic roster for flag football.
Well, they announced the U.S. men's team for the 2025 competitions earlier this week, and there were 12 players and 6 alternates. But for the Olympics, it's a 5-on-5 flag football with 10 players on the team. I don't know how many alternates. The proposal that became a final resolution this week allows for 1 player maximum per NFL team to be available for the Olympics, plus their international pathway program player that they have. But the main thing is the players who are the stars, the names we know. Receivers really want to do this for the most part. A lot of them. The receivers want to go get the gold medal.
But that roster made up of 10 players can consist of how many NFL players?
It can be 10. It can be 10, but only 1 per team.
Okay, so the entire roster can be the NFL. They're basically going to say to all the people who do play flag football professionally that we're going to take away your roster spots for the most part.
I think it's still early on. And all we know is 1 player per NFL team is eligible, and there will be 10 players on the U.S. men's team. It's going to be for the USA football group to determine who's on the team. And I don't know how you're going to do it. Are you going to have tryouts? Are you going to have competitions? Are you just going to make a guess as to which NFL players will be able to learn flag football, which is a very different game than tackle football? How much prep time are you going to have? Every rep that you put in to practicing for the Olympic flag football is another opportunity to be injured. And I know people say, oh, it's flag football. Well, Google Robert Edwards if you want to know what can happen to somebody who's not playing tackle football, but still playing football. And that's the risk that the NFL has persuaded the teams to take under this guise of you're only putting 1 player up for the Olympics. And Dan, there's so many other ways this can go. There's no agreement between the NFL and the union yet on how this is going to work. The union may have some things to say. I could see a scenario where players can bargain with their teams to sacrifice their right to play in the Olympics if the team wants to pay them a little more money. I mean, if I was an owner and I have a star player who's on the fence, maybe I get a clause in his next contract where he waives his right to be part of the Olympic team. And if I'm the player and I can get more money by doing that, I'm all for it. But they haven't even begun to negotiate how this is going to look. There's so much more work that needs to be done. This is the beginning. It feels like the end. Yeah. No. There's so much that still needs to be done over the next 3 years.
The Brock Purdy deal. Whenever there's a deal, a big deal, I always go to Pro Football Talk. I go to your site because you sort through all of this because agents will put out, look at what I got for my player. And I always go, all right, let me see what Florio has found out. Tell me the Brock Purdy deal, and is it good is this team friendly? Is it Brock friendly? How do you kind of gauge this?
I think at the end of the day, Dan, it's a fair deal for both sides that acknowledges the reality that Brock Purdy isn't a top 5 quarterback. And I know that there are 49ers fans who will insist otherwise. He's not a top 5 quarterback. He's not a top 10 quarterback, in my opinion. He's middle of the pack. And there's no shame in being middle of the pack in NFL quarterbacks. That means for the guy who was the last pick in the draft, there's only 15 guys on the planet who can play quarterback in the NFL better than him. And the way this deal is going to go, he'll make $38 million a year for the next 3 years. The key date is April 1, 2027. That's the deadline for the 49ers to cut him before having $55 million become fully guaranteed in 2028. So based on the next 2 years, they'll make a decision as to whether to be on the hook for $55 million fully guaranteed in what would be year 4 of the contract. And they could get out of it after 2 years. They'd still owe him $27 million subject to offset. But they can get out of this after 2 years if the chariot turns into a pumpkin. So they have some protection. That's always one of the key factors that's never in the initial reporting. How long are the 49ers truly committed? They're truly committed for 2 years. They're going to have to make a decision after year 3 by April 1, whether or not they want to be on the hook for another $55 million in 2028. But over 6 years, it's $45 million a year. That's all that matters. New money average is a fiction aimed at making the agents look better. $53 million doesn't mean anything. What matters is it's a new 6-year contract. He'll make $41 million this year instead of $5 million, and it's a 6-year, $45 million deal.
Got better understanding on Aaron Rodgers' future or the Bengals' Trey Hendrickson?
Neither. And look, the reality with Hendrickson is he's got some options. He's got some leverage. He's got some cards to play. But if he holds out, of all the teams in the NFL, Dan, you know this, the Bengals don't care. They told Carson Palmer, you want to sit home on the couch watching bowling and eating pork rinds? Go for it. We don't care. We don't have to pay you. We'll pocket the money. $888,000 a game. Trey Hendrickson gives up. Mike Brown's like, fine, put it with the rest. So they're not going to blink. They're not going to bow here. The reality is, how much pressure is Joe Burrow going to put on the Bengals to do this? He started the effort around the Super Bowl. He named 4 guys: Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Mike Gesicki, and Trey Hendrickson. And I think the Bengals stepped up to the plate with 3 of them under pressure from Joe Burrow. Will they do what they need to do to make Trey Hendrickson happy? That remains to be seen. But there isn't a whole lot he can do to force this, because if he stays home, they'll say, fine, we'll keep your money. And with Rodgers, Ian O'Connor, who wrote the biography last year, he was on with one of the Pittsburgh radio stations, 93.7 The Fan, last week, and he thinks it'll happen during OTAs. I think it makes sense for it to happen soon, and he's there next week for OTAs. But remember this. When Brett Favre showed up with the Vikings in 2000, I remember there was a schism in the Minnesota locker room between the guys who wanted Brett Favre and the guys who wanted Tavares Jackson. You know how long it took for the schism to be resolved? One practice. The moment Aaron Rodgers shows up and starts throwing passes that make a sound they've never heard before when it whizzes by their head, they'll say, okay, we know why you waited until whenever it was that Aaron Rodgers decided to show up.
Your takeaway from the Brett Favre documentary?
Well, look, and I think there's 2 different types of audience. One, the people who don't follow the nonstop drip, drip, drip of NFL news. Like for me, there was nothing new. I was looking for something new. There's nothing new there. It's a nice summary of everything that's happened, but there was nothing that made me say, well, I have to go write a story for PFT with this quote, this development, this thing. It's all stuff we already knew, but it's all in one place. And I don't know, Dan, were you surprised by anything that was in it? I wasn't. I knew it all. And yeah, that's the stuff Brett Favre did or allegedly did. Got to be careful. Don't want to get sued. The stuff we know he did and this stuff he allegedly did.
Good to talk to you, Mike. Thanks for joining us. Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk Live, co-host and author of Father of Mine and Son of Mine, available in ebook form on Amazon, only 99 cents. We'll take a break. Our play of the day is up next.